Hello, it's Aliya from Occult. I hope you're doing really well. It's been a couple of weeks since my last upload, and that's actually what I wanted to talk about today. When you're a small business owner, how exactly do you bounce back if you have had time off for a period of illness or work or study or some other sort of commitment that you've got in your life? How do you manage that time, and then how do you recover and come back well? The first thing we're going to do is assess, which is basically do a brain dump onto a piece of paper or a soft copy on a computer and just work out all the commitments that you have in your life and all the potential for things to go wrong. So for example, in my life, I'm now studying at university. It's a part-time degree, but it is taking a considerable amount of my time each week. So I need to factor that into my decision making. I've also got a young family. So it's uncanny the amount of times that I have a big product launch coming up and my child gets sick. It's almost 100% guaranteed. So generally when I'm launching a product, she's homesick. Like I'm not able to, send her to daycare or school. So that's a factor in my life. I also suffer from chronic migraines and back pain. So I'm typically okay and can get by for a couple of months, but at the end of like a 3-month mark is guaranteed that I'll get knocked out by a migraine for usually 2 to 3 days, and then it will take me a full week to really recover and start to truly feel like myself again. So that's something that I would add down. And then if you have any other type of family commitments, like you might be a carer for an elderly parent, or you might have someone in your family with a chronic illness, and from time to time you will need to help that person out and be available, and that can be an interruption to your business activities. So write that all down on a piece of paper. They're just some examples, you'll have your own unique ones. The next step, really important, is planning ahead and planning ahead effectively. If you're making a lot of your own products, then you will need to factor in a really robust production schedule. So what I mean by that is having a look at what products you need to be making on a regular basis and what products are coming out for a special time of year, perhaps like Mother's Day is really big for you, or Christmas. They're the kind of times where you're going to be making and having to produce a lot more product, and all the supporting things that go around that, like the marketing activities and all that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that you have planned out very well in advance, with oodles of time, how long you will actually need to do these particular activities. As an example, 2 of my stockists have placed quite large orders for Halloween, and Halloween is my biggest time of year, as you may have guessed. That's what my customers love. So I need to factor in their sizable orders with my own stock and work backwards from like a reasonable time period to make sure that I've got a deadline for when production stops, for when I'm like, well, this is what I need to launch, this is what I need to fulfill my obligations. And having those really hard and fast deadlines will benefit you in this planning. Here is where it becomes really important to start early. I can't emphasize the importance of that enough. If something goes wrong, you really do want to have that extra lead time there for you. When you're corresponding with stockists, or even people that are like placing a bulk order for, say, wedding favors or Airbnb supplies or something like that, it's really important to under-promise and over-deliver. And if you get sick and you can't quite over-deliver, at least you're meeting your deadline. So when you take an order, you might say to yourself, oh, I can probably get that done and shipped out within 2 weeks. Don't say 2 weeks, because if something goes wrong, you have not left yourself enough time to do that particular task. If you have, illness or health problems, that you need to factor that in as well. If you've been keeping your own records of when you might have a particular attack of something, or whatever it is that you might be, you'll probably know when you're likely to be unwell, and that's the kind of thing that you can diarize to a certain extent. So it's a good idea to put that down as well. If you have work or study outside of your business that you need to take into consideration, you can plan somewhat in advance for those sorts of things. So you know what your average, weekly time investment is going to be for those things. But there's also sometimes where it's like crunch time at your work, or it's assignment time at uni or something like that. So you'll need to allow extra time. That means that you need to have started in advance with all of the rest of your work. So you can see how all this stuff begins to flow on and becomes really important. And there's a new problem that many of us are experiencing. In fact, I'd say all of us are experiencing because of the global situation, because of COVID, because so many supply chains have been so drastically interrupted. We're very used to buying things as we need them. We're pretty confident that when we need to get olive oil, we can go to the shops or go to our supplier and we can obtain that. We've also been sort of spoiled with fragrance and colorant for a long period of time, particularly in Australia. And now, because of ingredient shortages and interruptions with freight, there is very, very long periods of time when you can't get the ingredients that you need, or you can't get quite exactly what you need, and it creates more of a flow-on problem. So this is important with planning ahead, because you want to make sure that you're not leaving it too late to try and buy those things. Here in Australia, we are really impacted by fragrance shortages, and with most of the major, in fact, I think all of the major like fragrance suppliers internationally, they're really not shipping to Australia anymore, because there was changes with freight with potentially flammable items some time back, and like Nature's Garden, for example, we can't get fragrance here in Australia anymore that we import ourselves. We have to either go in through co-ops and group buy, or we have to buy from resellers or any of that type of stuff. So it's just not as easy as it was. And like for my Halloween lineup, for example, I've had to pick some substitutions, and there's just no way around that. So give yourself plenty of time to find out, to actually get the ingredients that you need, or the sundries. You might have a problem where a particular, soap dish or, like soap saver bag has been selling really, really well for you, but you can't get it anymore, or the shipping has blown out, disproportionately, and you can no longer afford to buy in that particular product, and you have to search for others. So try and factor in time that you'll need to find other alternatives. Like when I had to come up with some substitutions for my Halloween lineup, it took me days. So yeah, please add some time into your schedule for that. Okay, so we have assessed where we're at and we've planned ahead. Let's talk about the all-important thing of how we work when we're feeling well and our commitments outside of our business are pretty low. Now, the usual saying is work smarter, not harder. This is where I actually disagree. I think in these times, when you know that at some point you are going to have an interruption to your business because of illness or because of study or because of some other commitments, you genuinely have to be working smarter and harder. If you're going to have less time down the line because of illness or some other commitment, you aren't going to get those hours back. You simply have to front load and put more hours in to begin with. And I swear to you, it is the only way. Unless you happen to have a very well-established business with a very good cash flow and you're able to afford an assistant or some sort of staff or something like that, that you can push work to during those periods where you're just not able to. Most of us aren't going to be in that situation. We're still very much working for ourselves. You just simply have to throw money or time at something. I think time is the most cost-effective thing that we can invest into our business. Now, having said that, I will just add in the proviso that I'm not saying that you should run yourself ragged and, basically burn yourself out, and then that brings you into a period of illness or something like that. No. There is still an element of being smart about it. But when you're choosing what it is that you're going to tackle on a particular day or a week or however it is that you look at your tasks, definitely prioritize the ones that are going to make you money and set you up for the future. So depending on what your batch size is like, it may be more important for you to focus on your advertising and your social media presence than it is to focus on production. Because if you're making massive quantities at a time, you could have a production day or two or something like that, and you're set up with product for quite a long period of time. But if you're making smaller batches, you probably need to be prioritizing production, and then advertising is second. Because we're in business to make money, right? This is meant to support our lifestyle. It's meant to, take us away from the traditional workforce and allow us to pay for all of the costs that everyone has in their life in relation to, housing and food and other bills and lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. So don't feel as if you need to apologize for focusing on the activities that are going to bring, money to your business. That is the reason that your business exists, is to turn a profit. And I think as women, we can really struggle with that. And even as I'm saying these words, I'm not entirely sure I believe them with 100% of my being, which is really funny, because if I was working for another employer, there is no way known that I would accept what I'm taking home at the end of each month. There's no way known. So we do value ourselves and our time and the effort that we put out into the world, and we do expect to be compensated fairly in return for that. So if you believe that to be true with an external employer, really, really try and believe that to be true with yourself as an employer. Okay, rant over. Okay, so some examples of working smarter and harder could be writing blog posts in advance, scheduling your social media in advance. And when I say advance, I'm talking about like at least a month or two. That is going to take a lot of the pressure off if and when, and let's face it, it'll be when something goes wrong in your life and you can't work in your business at the same capacity that you were before. Try not to be lazy with tasks that you don't really want to do as much as you possibly can. Like for example, yesterday I had a very, very productive start to the day. And then by about 2 o'clock, I honestly sort of trailed off, and I could have done a hell of a lot more than I did. But I just sort of got lazy, and I was meant to wrap soap after my daughter went to bed. And I didn't. And then I had insomnia and I couldn't fall asleep for hours and hours and hours. So like I could have used that time really well, and it wouldn't have been particularly strenuous. I should have gotten up and gone and wrapped that soap, because now I have to do it today. And I'm actually kind of busy today. I think that self-discipline part of it is tricky, and I'm not saying that I'm the best at it, because clearly I'm not. But if you can keep those kind of principles in the back of your mind when you're, talking yourself out of doing extra work, you might find that that's actually really beneficial, is to get yourself ahead in that way. Now, another really important part of working smarter and harder is, I know I've already discussed like planning in advance, but I'm talking about more of like a strategic plan to how you want your business to perform in the next time period, whether you do it quarterly or annually or something like that. So it is still important to set aside small amounts of time. I mean, honestly, you could probably do this in about 30 minutes per week if you did it every week without fail, and you just added a little bit more to your strategy, and you just revised where you were at, and you had a look at your figures and what your projections were and where you wanted to be, and just assess where you're at. Like, do you need to change your approach? Is something working really well and you want to keep on doing more of that? Is something not performing and you can just cross that off your list? Like for example, TikTok. I know that a lot of soap makers are having huge success on TikTok. I got really into it to begin with, and now I just kind of watch TikTok and I don't make TikToks anymore. So I've just kind of taken that off my list of like social media channels, as in like I have it there, the name's saved. Every now and again I might post something, but honestly, I'm not going to worry too much about it. It's not underpinning any of my business building strategies. So recognize that you can't be everywhere, you can't be on every single platform, and if you've identified that your target market isn't exactly there, well then why bother? Like LinkedIn, for example. I think eventually LinkedIn will become important for networking for me, but for the moment it's not anything, so I don't really bother about it. Okay, moving on to recovery. So you've assessed, you've planned ahead, you work smarter and harder in the times where you are feeling your best. What do you do when you get sick? What do you do when you can't do your work? Now, I'm going to look at this through the lens of illness, because that's my experience. So, yeah, that's really where I can speak. I'm the kind of person that feels intense guilt at being unwell. And I've noticed that makes me sick for longer. So instead of, being able to recover within a couple of days, sometimes it's up to 5 days, that I'm like in bed and sick and just not able to get up and do anything. It's almost like a mindfulness technique where you have to be in the moment. You're like, right now, I am sick. I cannot do anything else. I need to be kind to myself and allow my body to heal. I can't speed this up. The only way that I can care for myself right now is to rest. And you have to focus on that. When I'm sick, I do not check my email. I don't get on social media. I don't do any of those sorts of things. A couple of reasons for that. I know that I am going to be riddled with anxiety and guilt by seeing what I should be doing and not having the energy to even be able to reply to a message. I know that's going to keep me sick for longer. And I also know that if people can see that I have been online, but I haven't answered messages, then that is going to create more problems than it actually solves. So you know how if you've been speaking with someone like through Instagram DMs or something like that, and you can see when a person's been online last, and same with Facebook Messenger and all that kind of stuff. You want to really not be online at all, because you don't want to give people the impression that you're ignoring them. If people can see that you haven't logged on for 2 or 3 days, most of us are savvy enough to go, you know what, I don't think they're well, or like, I think something must be happening in their life. It's fine, they'll get back to me. So focus on getting better, focus on resting. Do not check your email, do not check social media. Let's remember, I know that we want to provide the best customer service possible, but we have to remember at the end of the day that we are selling soap, bath products, candles, bath bombs, all these kinds of things. We don't have a patient on our table. We are not conducting brain surgery. What we do is not life and death. What we do at best involves people being happy or unhappy. And we're all human. And aside from the very, very small percentage of people that might be upset because something hasn't happened within a time frame that they would like, most of us understand that we get sick and other things come up. That's just life, okay? So just remember how you would act in that situation. If someone hadn't got back to you for a few days and then they told you, oh, I'm so sorry I had food poisoning. It's like, oh, that's okay, you poor thing. I hope you're feeling better now. You know, like you immediately respond with empathy. You're not like, oh God, how unprofessional. You know, like no one does that. No one that counts does that. Okay, rest, rest, rest. So basically you want to be resting. When you're not resting, you should be resting. I know that's easier said than done, because if you're a single parent or, you know, like there's just so many situations where it's not that easy for you to rest. Any kind of support structures that you have, if there might be, you know, family or a friend or even someone that you can pay in your life that can help you do the things that need to be done that you can't do, just call on them. Just call on them. It really does take a village with these type of situations, and it's important to remember that people don't realize their help is needed until we actually ask for it. Like, we're not mind readers. We're just people have to know that. People have to know that you need them, because let's face it, the majority of the time we are completely within our own heads. We are completely focused on our own lives and our own problems, and we don't really think about other people. So unless they let us know that something is up and they need our help, like how else would we know? Okay, so try and shake off a lot of that, particularly female guilt that we have about, you know, needing help. Now, I'm going to recap on everything again, and I'm going to show you how this is actually like a loop that you will just go in over and over and over again. So first you assess, and you should assess regularly because things in your life will change. Before I started studying, for example, I didn't have to take that into account. You know, aside from my family and business commitments, I didn't really have anything else. So I was kind of more flexible when I would eventually get a migraine, that, you know, it wasn't such a thing. But now that I've got a factor study into it as well, that required me to reassess the way I'm spending my time, you know, to quite a big extent. So we're going to assess, plan ahead, work smarter and harder in the times where we're well and have got minimal commitments. God, I can't do this with my finger. We're going to allow ourselves to recover well, and then we're going to start it all over again. We're going to assess. We're going to plan ahead. We are going to work smarter and harder. We are going to allow ourselves to recover when we get unwell. And then we are going to assess, and we are going to plan ahead. So on and so forth, so on and so forth. So I hope this somewhat rambly, kind of informal, sort of sporadic video was helpful for you. And I hope that you can see how it really, really benefits you to be methodical about the way that you plan for your business, and you plan for things to go wrong, because things will go wrong. It may not even be something dire. It could be, let's say you're planning a product launch and your labels go missing in the mail, or they reprinted wrong, or something doesn't turn up that is absolutely crucial for you to launch on time. If you haven't ordered those things far enough in advance and left room for error, then you're going to be behind and it'll be stressful. I'm at the point now with my business where I am planning 4 to 5 months ahead. At any given time, I'm 4 to 5 months ahead with what is coming out and what the business is going to be doing at that time. And it's definitely taken me a long time to get there. And that's because I worked smarter and harder at the start of the year when it was quiet, when retail was, you know, dead in this country and, you know, people weren't spending. I had more time to work on my business, not just in my business, but on my business. And that meant that it wasn't a plan at the start of the year, but it's given me it's given me additional time to study that ordinarily I would not have had time for if I hadn't planned so far in advance. So it can benefit you in ways that you can't really anticipate until an opportunity is presented to you and you have to say yes or no. And then you reflect about where you could have, perhaps used your time a little bit better. Okay, so thank you for watching. I will upload another video as soon as I possibly can. I had intended this to be weekly, but study is a real thing and illness is a real thing. So, maybe I need to reassess what is actually realistic and what is achievable instead of what is optimum. What can I do without, failing my exams? And what can I do without, missing opportunities in my business in order to pursue this thing that I find, really fun and I want to share with people, but, it's not making me money. So I have to be really careful about where I'm focusing my time. And I would encourage you to do the same. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.